Okay, so now that we've covered the different stages of production, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, let's dive into what they actually mean. So, long story short, where are you going to produce at? Well, you're going to produce in stage 2. And over the next 2 videos, I'm going to explain why you produce in stage 2 and not in stage 3 and not in stage 1. So, let's start off with the easiest to explain, and that's stage 3. You are never ever going to produce in stage 3. You don't want to produce in stage 3. Why is that? Well, if marginal physical product is negative, it means that if you use one more input, your output falls. Because if you remember that whenever marginal physical product falls below 0, total output is actually falling, which means as we increase the number of inputs, total output actually falls. So essentially what it's going to do is it's going to cost you more and you get less total product. So let's actually think about this for a second. An example of stage 3, let's say you work for one more hour on that essay that you've been working on all day. You had an essay for an English class, you had a project for a class, you've been working on it all day, grammar is important, and in that last hour that you work on it, you actually misspell 10 words, and those 10 words that you misspelled causes your grade to actually fall. So essentially, you spent an extra hour on it to make your grade lower. Are you ever going to do that? Just think about that in real life. Are you ever going to put in more effort to come out with a lower outcome than something if you would have just stopped sooner? So let's bring it back to a business standpoint. Let's say that you manage a coffee shop and you bring in one more worker. Now there are too many workers behind the counter and they keep bumping into each other. So guess what? Less coffee is actually sold, less coffee is made, less coffee is sold than if you would not have brought in that one extra person. Oh, and guess what? You have to pay that worker too. So you essentially have to pay that worker in that coffee shop to produce less coffee. You're not going to do that. It makes no sense whatsoever. So essentially, you're never going to produce in stage 3. You're never going to produce there for the simple aspect that as you increase the number of inputs, total product actually falls, which means it's going to cost you more to pay for those inputs, but you get less total product out, which that doesn't make any sense. You're never going to produce there because of that fact. Now, stage 1. You're not really going to produce at stage 1, and if you do produce at stage 1, you're not going to stay there very long. You may produce in this area, but you want to expand out of this area. You want to get out of this area as quickly as possible, increase production. So remember, if MPP is above your APP, if your marginal physical product is above your average physical product, if it is above that, so increasing production will actually increase your average physical product, making it more efficient. Do you remember on those previous slides where we said that if we're operating in this area, that as long as marginal physical product is over average physical product is going up. And if average physical product is going up, it's making you more efficient per unit, per input. You're more efficient per input. You're going to try and capitalize on that efficiency. And so therefore, you're going to actually increase your production to gain that extra efficiency. You want to be more efficient as you go about doing this, especially on a per input basis. So let's take an example of stage 1. So let's assume that you have the chance to take another test or pass on the opportunity. You currently have maybe a B or C in the class or something like that, and you have another chance to take, maybe you're given the optional final or an optional midterm or something of that nature. If you take the test, the additional points that you would receive will be higher than your average grade. So if you go ahead and take that final, or you take that midterm, you take that optional test, by taking that test, the additional points that you would receive, that marginal points, those additional points, would actually be higher than your average test grade. So let's say you take that test and you make a 95 on it, but your average was 85. By taking that test, it's actually going to bring up your average, because as the 95 gets factored into that same equation, it's actually going to bring up your average. So by agreeing to increase the number of tests that you take, as long as the test scores are higher than your average score, which that's what it's saying right here, as long as marginal physical product is above that average, you should keep taking those tests because it's going to increase your overall average, and it's going to increase. You'll keep taking more of these opportunities as long as your average grade improves, because overall it's going to make you more efficient per test in terms of by averaging those out. So essentially, you're never going to produce in stage 3. By producing in stage 3, you're actually going to increase your cost, but you're going to get less out. And if you do produce in stage 1, you're going to want to expand out of this area as soon as possible. You're going to want to get out of it. And essentially the reason why is because if you have the option to increase your efficiency, why not do it? Why not produce more and increase your efficiency? Why not take that extra test? Why not take that extra test and improve your average grade? Because the marginal grade, that additional grade by taking that additional test, because it's higher than average physical product, because that extra output is higher than your average, it's going to bring up your average as a whole. So why not do that? You actually want to do that to capitalize on a higher efficiency.